They poisoned the Deathworld girl's water. It died first. The instructor saw it 9 seconds too late. I have signed the certification record for containment Suite 9 41 times. I know the compound. I know the tier rating. I know it in my hands when I hold the injection vial, and I know it in the data when I read the cascade profiles running through my terminal at night. I have watched this same compound move through the bloodstreams of 14 different species. Watched how it hits the Vrelkai jawfins at the 4-minute mark like clockwork. Watched the Osek seam lines dim in that silent, dignified sequence they do not break for anything. Watch the Thordani secondary hearts approach their absolute ceiling, and then yield. I have never once, in 14 years, needed to check whether the database held what I needed it to hold. The gap had been there for 4 years. I had flagged it once. I had not flagged it again. I am not going to apologize for that decision, but I am going to spend the rest of my career thinking about why I made it. Her intake file was 1 page. 1 page. Species, human, age 23, medical clearance, standard, psychological assessment, standard, toxicology baseline, human entry pending. The trial was Class 8. Class 8 had run without incident through 312 previous cadets across 11 years of my tenure. No anomalies, no surprises, no moment where the instrument predicted one outcome and the body did something else. I looked at that single-page file, and I felt the professional satisfaction of someone who knows exactly what is going to happen next. But on the day of the 313th cadet, something happened inside Containment Suite 9 that the database had never encountered. Something that should have poisoned her. It did not. And I have spent 6 weeks trying to explain it on a form, and I cannot, so the cause of anomaly field remains blank. This is what I saw. This is what the instruments measured. This is why I requested recusal from all human trials, and why that request was approved without question, which tells you everything you need to know about whether anyone else understands what they are looking at. The seal on Containment Suite 9 closed at 0725, 00. 22 cadets entered. 21 of them proceeded through the compound exposure exactly as the database predicted. The 22nd did something no species in the database had ever done. And I was standing at the abort panel with my hand on the switch, and I knew it was happening, and I still reached it 3 seconds too late. Let me walk backward first. You need to see what certainty looks like before I can show you the moment it fractured. Containment Suite 9 is located in the east wing of Orville Tassin Academy, Containment Division. The walls are reinforced alloy. The floor is sealed with a drain system for emergency purge. The trial stations are arranged in a circle around the central observation platform where I stand. The instrument panel is lined with monitors, toxin concentration, vital signs, cascade progression, neural activity where applicable. The panel glass is cool and reflects the room in pale green light. It smells like processed atmosphere and metal and something faintly like cold storage. I have spent more hours in this room than I have spent anywhere else in my adult life. I know every reflection in the glass. I know the exact moment the overhead lights flicker. I know which monitor displays data half a second slower than the others. I have supervised 443 trials in this room. I have never been wrong about the outcome, not because I am particularly clever, because the database is complete for every species we have enrolled, and I have treated that database the way it deserves, as a perfect record of everything we have encountered, and a perfect model of what comes next. The database has never failed me. This is important. This is the thing that was true at 0725, 00 and stopped being true at 0731, 28. The Vrelkai always drink first. This is not a variable. This is a species trait that is held across every trial I have run and every trial before me in the institutional records. Vrelkai are hydration-oriented in their neurology. They experience stress as a dehydration signal even when the environment is not dehydrated. The moment they are placed in the trial chamber, they move toward the water cup. Within 9 seconds. I have timed this. 8 trials it took 9 seconds. 1 trial took 8 seconds. 7 trials took 10 seconds. The variance is negligible and fully modeled. At 0725, 31, the Vrelkai cadet at Station 3 reached for her water cup. I noted the timestamp, professional habit. Cauldron always notes the timestamp. By the 4-minute mark, the Vrelkai's jaw fins would soften. By the 6-minute mark, her nervous system would cascade in the pattern that varies by no more than 8 seconds across all individual trials. She would be incapacitated. She would be safe. The data would be clean. This is how it always works. The OSEC never vocalize at any tier of the compound exposure. Not at Tier 1. Not at Tier 2. Not when their seam lines are dimming and their nervous system is collapsing. They consider it dignified to incapacitate in silence. I have watched this 207 times. The pattern is precise. Their bioluminescent seam lines along the spinal ridge are visible and measurable. They begin at full brightness when the cadet enters the suite. They dim progressively, one section every 45 seconds in reliable sequence. By the 6-minute mark, approximately 70% dimmed. By the 8-minute mark, 95% dark. By the 9-minute mark, seems fully extinguished and the cadet is unconscious. I have never seen variation. The seams dim, the silence holds, the data point is clean. At 07:25:47, the OSSEC cadet at Station 6 stood at his trial station and waited for his seams to begin their dimming sequence. The Thordani have secondary hearts. This is visible at their sternum as a faint pressure node beneath the uniform. They know this about themselves. They know their own threshold, the tier at which that secondary heart will reach its absolute load limit and cascade into incapacitation. When a Thordani enters the trial chamber, they stand aware of their own biology in a way that suggests a kind of quiet dignity. They do not move. They do not fidget. They stand with one hand resting on the edge of the trial surface, not gripping, just present. I have noted this moment in 8 previous trials. Each time within 2 seconds of their entry to the suite. The precision is remarkable. I have certified the Thordani threshold. It does not vary. At 07:26:03, the Thordani cadet at Station 8 stood in that familiar posture, aware of the secondary heart visible as a faint outline beneath her uniform. 21 cadets, 21 data points that would proceed exactly as I knew they would. And then there was the human at Station 11. She was 159 centimeters in height, 47 kilograms in mass, single circulatory loop, visible vasculature across the soft tissue of her limbs. No species-specific toxicology database entry. I had flagged the human entry gap 4 years prior. The memo was precise. It stated that a human toxicology baseline should be established pending future enrollment. The memo was acknowledged. The memo was filed. No follow-up was required. I did not file a follow-up. She sat down at Station 11 and opened a small flat tin. The tin was dented at one corner. Inside were paper-tagged dry packets. The paper was faded. The ink on the tags was old, the kind of old that suggests the packets had been carried for a very long time. She handled the tin with a deliberateness that implied she knew exactly how many packets were left inside. And she knew the number was not large. This was the first wrong detail, not something catastrophic, just something that registered as off against the clean parameters of the rest of the room. The Vrelkai do not bring objects into trial chambers. The OSSEC do not. The Thordani do not. But the human did. She brought a small tin. She brought finite comfort into a space built for measurement. I noted this without category. She read the paper tag on the dry packet the way cadets sometimes read letters from home before they enter. Not tightly, just present. Her eyes moved across the faded writing. Her hands held the packet carefully, the way you hold something finite and irreplaceable. At 07:29:45, the incident report would show that I noted this moment and did not flag it for concern. The trial sequence proceeded. The compound was introduced into the water cups at all 22 stations. The Vrelkai at Station 3 drank first, as always. Her jaw fins began to soften at the 3-minute and 56-second mark, 9 seconds ahead of the curve. This was noted as typical. This was professional to note. The OSSEC at Station 6 stood with his bioluminescent seams at full brightness, beginning their first dimming sequence right on schedule. No variation. The Thordani at Station 8 stood in that quiet posture, aware of her secondary heart, aware of her threshold. 19 other cadets at 19 other stations, all proceeding within specification, all providing clean data to the archive. At 07:31:07, the human at Station 11 placed the dry packet into her water cup. The instrument at Station 11 began its analysis, processing. I watched the timestamp on the panel. 07:31:07. Processing took 0.4 seconds. This is not long. This is barely perceptible. This is the kind of delay that should not mean anything. But in 0.4 seconds, the instrument encountered a reaction type it had no classification for. The compound inside the water, the Tier 3 compound I had watched cascade through 14 species in identical sequence, reacted with something in the dry packet in a way that generated a measurement the instrument had never been asked to calculate. 340% of the upper safety ceiling. The flag fired red. Lethal concentration threshold exceeded. Station 11. Projected survival 0%. The red flag was correct. For every species in the database, every single one, that concentration would kill. The instrument had calculated this accurately. It was not wrong. It simply had never been asked what would happen if you placed that concentration inside a digestive system it had never modeled. I reached the abort switch at 07:31:22. My hand moved without instruction from anywhere. The abort delay is 9 seconds. Standard protocol, it protects against false readings. I had never needed to override it in 14 years of trials. At 07:31:28, the switch activated. She set the cup down. The instrument was still reading red, still screaming, still projecting survival at 0%. I was watching the timestamp and watching her hands, and she made a small face, so small, private, the expression of something that had swallowed something it expected to taste very differently. She said 4 words, just 4. Needs more honey. I have reviewed the audio log 17 times since that moment. The audio is clear. The words are distinct. There are 4 words, and they are the most important data point in the case file. Medical entered at 07:31:34. The scan completed at 07:31:56. Her temperature was 37.2 degrees Celsius. Her cardiovascular readings were within normal parameters. Her respiratory function showed no distress. The Tier 3 compound had been partially neutralized by gastric acid secretion, a process that is not modeled in the database because there is no human entry in the database to require that entry. The remaining fraction of the compound passed through her digestive system without achieving systemic absorption. She was not in critical condition. She was not in any condition except calm. She asked the medical technician if there was a kettle anywhere in the facility. She asked this while lying on the medical scan platform. She asked this with the tone of someone who had simply encountered a minor administrative problem. My pigment shifted to violet. It happened at 07:31:17. The exact moment the instrument fired red, and I understood, not suspected, understood, that the database was correct and irrelevant, and everything I had built my certainty on was simply incomplete. I do not check my reflection in the panel glass when my pigment is violet. There is nothing in my reflection to correct. I filed nothing for 11 minutes. The trial proceeded to its scheduled end time. All cadets were classified. All cadets were filed. All cadets except one moved through the database with the precision that the database was built to contain. Just the one at Station 11 moved through something the database did not have the architecture to measure. What would you do with the blank space? Would you fill it? Would you leave it empty? I think I know what I am doing. I am still not sure I am right. This is what keeps me awake. This is why I requested recusal. This is why the request was approved without question, because somewhere in the chain of command, someone understood that I had seen something the system could not file, and that seeing it had changed me in ways the system was not equipped to measure either. The incident report was filed at 09:00:00. Every field was accurate to the second, species counts correct. Compound tier verified, instrument readings logged. The cause of anomaly field remained blank because there is no field that says the database was not wrong. The database was simply incomplete, and I cannot write that on a form. Containment Division reviewed the incident at standard pace. They noted the instrument flag. They noted the abort activation. They noted that the medical scan showed no physiological event requiring intervention. The review concluded that the human toxicology database should be examined for potential gaps. The memo recommending the review was acknowledged and filed. I had flagged the human entry gap 4 years prior. The memo was acknowledged and filed. I had not filed a second memo recommending the same thing. I did not flag it again. I let the gap sit. I let the system continue, believing it was complete when it was not. On the day of the 313th cadet, that incompleteness became visible in red light on an instrument panel, and I could not unsee it. Medical entered at 07:31:34. The seal hissed. The technician moved fast, practiced. The kind of fast that comes from running this sequence 243 times before and knowing exactly which cadets require intervention and which ones survive it. I watched from the panel. The scan completed at 07:31:56. Her temperature was 37.2 degrees Celsius. Her cardiovascular readings were within normal parameters. Her respiratory function showed no distress. The Tier 3 compound had been partially neutralized by gastric acid secretion, a process that is not modeled in the database, because there is no human entry in the database to require that entry. The remaining fraction of the compound passed through her digestive system without achieving systemic absorption. She was not in critical condition. She was not in any condition except calm. She asked the medical technician if there was a kettle anywhere in the facility. The medical technician did not know how to answer this question. She looked back at me through the observation window. Her eyes held a question I could not answer either. I did not gesture. I did not move. I was standing at the panel with my hands still on the abort switch that I had activated 3 seconds too late. My pigment had shifted to violet at 07, 31, 17. It happened the moment the instrument fired red, and I understood, not suspected. Understood with the clarity of something breaking, that the database was correct and irrelevant, and everything I had constructed my certainty on was simply incomplete. I did not check my reflection in the panel glass. There was nothing in my reflection to correct anymore. The human was sitting up on the medical platform now. The medical technician had brought her a cup, not tea, water. The technician did not know about the kettle. The human drank the water. She drank it the way someone drinks water when they have just survived something their body did not know was supposed to kill it. The trial proceeded to its scheduled conclusion time at 07:45:00. All cadets were classified by that point. All cadets were filed. 21 of them moved through the database with the precision the database was built to contain. Just one of them had moved through something the database had no architecture to measure. I filed nothing for 11 minutes. The observation panel stayed dark. My hands stayed on the abort switch even though the trial was over. The switch had already been used. Pressing it again would not change anything. But I could not remove my hands. It took 11 minutes before I could move them. When I finally turned away from the panel, I walked to my filing station without looking at anyone. My pigment was violet. Everyone could see it. No one spoke to me. In 14 years, no one had ever seen me leave an observation station with violet. Violet means something has broken. Violet means the system has failed and the failure is visible on your skin and you cannot hide it. The incident report filing window opened at 09:00:00. I sat down at the terminal. My hands were trembling slightly. I do not remember deciding to file anything. I remember opening the report template. I remember filling in the fields with precision, timestamp, species count, compound tier, instrument readings. Each field accurate to the second. Each measurement exact. The cause of anomaly field remained blank. There is no field in this form that says, the database was not wrong. The database was simply incomplete. There is no field that says, the instrument measured accurately, but had no model for what the human could do with the measurement once it was inside her body. There is no field that captures the 0.4-second processing delay, where the instrument encountered something at the edge of its classification architecture, and had nothing to call it. I left the field empty. An empty field is a form of honesty that the system does not have language for. The report was filed at 09:00:00. The system accepted it. The system processed it. The cause of anomaly field remained blank in the permanent record. The Containment Division Review Board processed the incident at standard pace. This is how the system works. Something goes wrong. The system acknowledges it. The system files it. The system continues operating as if the filing constitutes resolution. They noted the instrument flag. Lethal concentration threshold exceeded. The flag was correct. They noted the abort activation at 07:31:28. They noted that the medical scan showed no physiological event requiring intervention. They noted that the human cadet's vital signs were normal. They noted that she was now classified as having completed the Class 8 trial successfully. She had survived the compound exposure, which is the technical definition of completion. The review concluded that the human toxicology baseline should be examined for potential gaps. A memo recommending this review was generated. The memo was sent to the Database Management Division. The memo was acknowledged. The memo was filed. I had flagged the human entry gap 4 years prior. The memo I filed was titled Recommendation, Establish Human Toxicology Baseline Pending Future Enrollment. It was precise. It was thorough. It stated that a human toxicology database entry should be created before any human cadets participated in containment trials in order to provide accurate predictive modeling for human-specific compound interactions. The memo was acknowledged and filed. I had not filed a second memo recommending the same thing. For 4 years, the gap remained in the system. The database continued operating with an incomplete entry set. The database believed itself to be complete. I had flagged the gap and then I had let it be filed away, which the system interpreted as closure. On the day of the 313th cadet, that incompleteness became visible in red light on an instrument panel and in lethal concentration measurements that were correct and irrelevant, and I could not unsee it. I filed a new memo 1 week after the incident. This memo was titled Urgent Recommendation, Human Toxicology Database Review and Entry Completion. It was more urgent than the first memo. It was filed with higher priority status. It was acknowledged and filed within the standard processing window. The human cadet advanced to secondary certification. The medical team cleared her for continued trials. Her baseline toxicology was listed as pending further data collection. The Academy was waiting for more data. The Academy did not understand that the gap in the data was not a shortage of measurement. The gap was that the database had never been asked to measure a human before, and so it had built its models without knowing that humans existed. I requested recusal from all human trials. The request was filed at 09:45:00. It was approved at 09:47:00, 2 minutes. No questions asked. No explanation required. The system knew. When someone stands at an observation panel with violet pigment and requests recusal, the system knows that something has broken them that the system was not designed to acknowledge or repair. The small tin was transferred to Case 7 of the Orville-Tassin Anomaly Archive, Containment Division, on the day after the incident. It was placed behind reinforced glass. The glass was Academy standard. The plaque was fixed in the dry institutional font the Academy uses for all cataloged exceptions. The plaque listed the date, 07/31/28. It listed the compound, Tier 3 incapacitation agent, batch designation 447T3HV. It listed the recorded concentration, 340% of upper safety ceiling. It listed the outcome, cadet survived, no physiological event detected. It did not list the 4 words she had said. No one thought to capture that in the plaque. The 4 words were in the audio log. The audio log was filed separately. The plaque was meant to contain the data that could be measured. The 4 words did not fit in the measurable framework. I visited Case 7 on the 18th day. I stood in front of the reinforced glass. The tin was visible inside, dented at one corner. I could see the edge of the paper tags through the glass. I counted the packets. 2 packets remained. The original number was unknown. I would never know how many she had started with, which meant I would never know whether she had planned to come to the trial chamber with a finite amount of comfort, or whether she simply always carried a finite amount and had brought it here by habit. The tea inside the tin was a color I had never seen before the trial. Brownish gold. The packets were faded. The ink on the tags was old. After that day, I visited Case 7 12 more times in 6 weeks. I counted the packets each time. 2. The number did not change. The Academy had sealed the case. The Academy was not going to use the contents for further testing. The contents were cataloged as an anomaly. Anomalies go behind glass. Anomalies do not get opened again. My pigment remained violet each time I stood in front of the glass. The database still has no entry for gastric acid neutralization at the pH range that humans carry. I checked last week. I checked the week before. I have checked 17 times since the incident. The entry does not exist. If the entry existed, the instrument would have a model for what happens when Tier 3 compound meets human digestive chemistry. If the entry existed, the 0.4-second processing delay would have made sense. The instrument would have been calculating something instead of encountering something at the edge of its classification architecture. But the entry does not exist. I had filed a memo 4 years prior recommending that a human toxicology baseline be established pending future enrollment. It was acknowledged and filed. I had not filed a second memo. 4 years went by. The gap remained. The system continued operating as if the gap had been resolved by being filed. A second memo recommending the same thing was filed the week after the incident. This memo was more urgent. It was filed with higher priority. It was acknowledged and filed within the standard processing window. A third memo, filed just last week, recommended that the human toxicology review be prioritized for resource allocation. It has been acknowledged and filed. I think the memos understand each other now. They sit in the filing system together. They have learned to live with being acknowledged and filed without generating actual change. They have learned that institutional filing is a form of closure that does not require anything to actually close. The blank cause of anomaly field has sat on the incident record for 6 weeks. I have not filled it. I will not fill it. I have been offered the opportunity by Containment Division to complete the report. The system has flagged the blank field as incomplete. The system has issued 3 notifications asking me to provide closure information. I have not responded to the notifications. Some truths are too honest for a form, and I have learned that the form knows this. The form has learned to accept its own incompleteness. The form has learned that sometimes the most honest answer is the blank space itself. My pigment has not shifted back to amber since 07/31/17. It has been 6 weeks. The violet is deeper now. My hands show it first, the soft tissue on my palms and the underside of my wrists. My colleagues have stopped asking if I am well. My pigment tells them I am not well, and that is information they can process without me needing to explain it. In 14 years of trials, I have never seen another person leave an observation station with violet. I have never had to understand what violet means in the body of someone who has been proven wrong about something fundamental. The human advanced to secondary certification. I watched the roster move. I did not observe her trials. The recusal was approved because the system recognized that I had seen something the system could not file, and that seeing it had changed me in the ways the system was not equipped to restore. Some things cannot be unseen. Some things cannot be returned to the state of certainty they were in before. I am going to tell you what I understand now. I am going to say it plainly because plain language is what I have left. I am going to say it without the clinical distance that I have maintained for 14 years, because that distance is no longer available to me. The instrument measured. The instrument was correct. The instrument had calculated lethality accurately for every species it had ever been asked to measure. The problem was that it had never been asked to measure a human. The problem was not with the measurement. The problem was with the incompleteness of what the measurement could apply to. I signed the certification record. I signed it 41 times. I signed it with the confidence of someone who knew that the database was complete. The database was not complete. I had flagged the gap. I had let it be filed away. I had treated filing as closure. The database remained incomplete. When the human placed the dry packet in the water, she was not trying to break the system. She was not trying to prove the system wrong. She was making tea. She was making something comfortable. She was making something that she had carried in a small tin because she knew exactly what she had left. She did not know the system was incomplete. She just knew that she was thirsty and that the water needed honey and that somewhere in the facility there might be a kettle. She knew how to survive. She knew how to do it with something the system had never modeled. She knew how to do it with something the system had no words for. No warning, no declaration, no mercy for the system that thought it was ready for her. I have left the cause of anomaly field blank for 6 weeks. The field remains blank. The system is waiting for me to fill it. The system is waiting for closure. I am not going to give it closure. I am going to leave the blank space there. I am going to leave it there for the rest of my career. The blank space is what is true. The blank space is where the database meets the world it was not built to contain. The blank space is honest in a way that no form can be. 2 packets remain in the tin behind reinforced glass in case 7. The tea inside is a color I saw once and will never see the same way again. The paper tags are faded. The tin is dented at one corner. The dent is from being carried. The dent is from being held with care by someone who knew exactly what she had left and chose to bring it anyway. The Academy's plaque is fixed beneath the glass. It contains the facts that can be filed. It contains the date. It contains the compound. It contains the concentration. It contains the outcome. It contains nothing about the gap. It contains nothing about the 0.4 seconds when the instrument found something at the edge of its classification architecture. It contains nothing about the moment the database realized it was incomplete. It contains nothing about the 4 words. It contains nothing about the kettle. The plaque is honest about what it does not say. I walk past case 7 sometimes. I stand in front of the glass. I count the packets. 2. The number does not change. My pigment is still violet. It will be violet for the rest of my career. The violet is not a sickness. The violet is what happens when certainty breaks and you can no longer hide it beneath your skin. I have signed 41 certification records. I have certified the limits of 312 cadets. On the day of the 313th, I learned that certainty is a comfort, not a truth. Both things are simultaneously true, and I will spend the rest of my life holding both of them. The blank cause of anomaly field is waiting. I will leave it blank.